Radio General.
Radio General.
So we've reached that part of the show where it's all about the local rugby league scene. And it'd be fair to say it's been an interesting old weekend. We're going to start with the National Conference League and things finally starting to get sorted about who's going up, who's getting relegated. So if we start with the general look at things like we usually do, in the Premier Division, Hunslet Club Parkside are still top, 21 games played, 21 wins. Nobody's come close to even defeating them this season. So they're having what is a stellar campaign, to be honest. At the bottom of the table, Wigan St Patrick's, the famous Wigan St Pat's amateur side, they're getting relegated. Second bottom with Myton Warriors from Hull. There's an almighty scramble between three sides in that top division. Kells, Normanton Knights and Rochdale Mayfield could all still go down with one game remaining of the regular season. Into Division 1, and relegation has already been decided for Shawcross Sharks of Dewsbury and Bradford Dudley Hill, who are the bottom two sides. But it's looking increasingly likely that Ince Rose Bridge are going to join them as well, with just a couple of games remaining. And at the top of the table, Thornhill Trojans have got back-to-back promotions. So they got promoted as Division 2 champions last season. They've now been promoted as Division 1 champions this term. Into Division 2, and three sides have been confirmed as relegated now. Driglington, Hunslet Warriors and my side, Lee East, who have struggled, it would be fair to say, this season. All three of those sides have struggled at times. In Division 3, there's two sides that have been promoted so far. Beverley and Barrow Island. Woolston Rovers in a good position locally to challenge for a playoff position, and Crossfield sitting in third spot in Division 2. So let's have a look at last weekend's games then. We'll start with that Division 2, and Driglington were the visitors to Crossfields at the weekend, and it ended up being a real tight encounter, this. Crossfields eventually winning by 36 points to 32. A real seesaw clash, and Driglington had a 14-4 lead, which was transformed into a 32-20 deficit. But they restored parity by the 74th minute, thanks to tries by Ethan Hallis and Tom Morby, with Michael Sanderson adding the last two of his 4 goals. The Soap, though, snatched victory with 2 penalties in the last couple of minutes for Jack Reed. Nathan Taylor had earlier scored a hat-trick for the hosts, with Hayden James also bagging a brace, and Dan Reed and Tom Millington also touching down, with Jack Reed adding 2 goals to his 2 penalties that he kicked later on. Just to complete the scoring as far as Driglington were concerned, Luke Smithson and Dan Sanderson, who scored twice, and Morby had opened for the visitors. So a real tight, tense tussle there. And I suppose at one point, the unthinkable was happening. Driglington sort of in with a chance in that game, but just being found out at the back end and eventually getting relegated. Into Division 3, and locally, it was Dewsbury Celtic who kept their hopes for featuring in the playoffs alive with a 36-4 success over 5th place Woolston, who are not yet quite certain of taking part. Rovers' Dom Fernley replied to Danny Thomas opener after 23 minutes. But Celtic then took control, with Pat Fulston scoring 2 tries, a second effort coming on the board from Thompson, and further tries from James Walker, Nathan Waring and Tony Dunford. So it ended up being quite a comprehensive victory in the end there in that Division 3 encounter. Heaton kicking 4 goals in total, and that moved Dewsbury Celtic on from a 14-4 half-time advantage out to the 36 points to 4 victory as it turned out. The other results to tell you about from Division 2 involving Crossfields were East Leeds 28, Askham 42, Lee East 10, West Bowling 40, Saddleworth Rangers 32, Hull Dockers 22, Stanley 42, Hunslet Warriors 12, and Wigan St Jude's 12, Dewsbury Moor Maroons 16. In Division 3, the results last weekend were Beverley 56, Gateshead Storm 0, Clockface Miners 18, Millom 18. That's a couple of draws that they've had this season, to be honest, of Millom. Dewsbury Celtic 36, Woolston 4, as we said. Oldham St Anne's 18, Barrow Island 32, and Waterhead Warriors 22, Eastmoor Dragons 28. The fixtures this weekend, as far as Division 2 goes, Askham are at home to Stanley, Lee East travel over to Dewsbury Moor Maroons. Driglington host Wigan St Jude's, whilst Hull Dockers make the trip to Hunslet Warriors. Crossfields are also on the road as well, travelling a little bit more locally, however, over to Saddleworth Rangers. That should be a top game. Saddleworth have been much improved over the second half of the season. In fact, I think they're on a run of about 7 or 8 successes in the last 10 games, so they've really hit a seam of form at the moment. Crossfields too, though, managing to find wins at certain points where it's where they've needed to. 14 wins this season from 21 matches, so it's going to be interesting. Crossfields also the top scorers in the division as well, 666 points scored in their 21 matches, and that's going to be a fascinating encounter over there at Saddleworth. All I can say, if you're going over to that one and it's a warm day, just mind that you don't get all midgy bites, because I've been there a couple of times and end up getting covered in midgy bites. It's right next to a brook is the ground, so you do tend to get that happening. The other game in Division 2, West Bowling take on East Leeds, while there's just 4 games to tell you about in Division 3. Barrow Island are at home to Dewsbury Celtic, Eastmoor Dragons are at home to Millom, Gateshead Storm at home to the Clockface Miners, and Woolston Rovers are at home to Oldham St Anne's. Now, St Anne's, they're sitting beneath St Anne's, they're sitting beneath Woolston at the moment, 2 places below them in 7th spot, so still plenty to be decided here. I'm just looking at the league table. Millom look like they're set to tie up a playoff spot. Clockface Miners also look like they could do. Woolston are sitting just beneath them with Eastmoor Dragons below them, but to be honest, those last 3 sides that I've mentioned, there is only 2 points between them, so still plenty of action to come in these closing stages of the season. But as I mentioned before, things starting to get decided at that level. Let us move over to the Northwest Men's League, and let us first of all look at the results from last weekend in the Premier Division. It was Ashton Burrs 16, Heysham Atoms 12, Haydock 28, Thatto Heath Crusaders A-side 14, Orrell St James 24, Folly Lane 0, Shevington Sharks 0, West Bank Burrs 24. Both of those last games, by the way, were the default wins that you get if the other side either has cancelled or hasn't turned up. So well done on those teams that actually managed to get the games on in the Premier Division. Into Division 1, and Hindpool Tigers couldn't take a team to Latchford Albion, so Latchford Albion ended up with the win there. Walney Central had the same result against Lee Miners Rangers A, who couldn't raise a side. Widnes Tigers, who've been going great guns in the second half of the season, defeating Rochdale Mayfield A side by 36 points to 6. And Hurstfinch of St Helens going down to Pilkington Rex by 34 points to 22. Division 2 saw a really close game between Bury Broncos and Manchester Rangers, with Bury just coming out on top by 18 to 14. Leyland Warriors couldn't put a team out at Ulverston, so Ulverston got the points there. Charlie Panthers 20, Oldham St Anne's A 34, and Wigan St Cuthberts won away at Wigan St Jude's A by 34 points to 0. Into Division 3, Rochdale Cobras had a solid win against Chester Gladiators by 24 points to 16. Woolston Rovers A didn't play but gained the points against Eccleston Lions. West Horton Lions, they won on the road at Langworthy Reds. And a real notable upturn in form for Burton Woodbridge, who had been edged out the week before in the Warrington Alliance Cup final against Crossfields A. The two sides met again last weekend. Burton Woodbridge a resounding victory by 36 points to 2. You couldn't ask for much better, and a much better response. It's almost akin to that Warrington response after losing at Wembley to defeat Hull by such a heavy margin last week. But that is a big result for Burton Woodbridge. 36 points to 2 over their local neighbours from Crossfields A. Division 4 saw 3 of the 4 games go ahead. Saddleworth Rangers A 52, Blackpool Scorpions 12, Runcorn 30, Garswood Stags 24, Wigan Springview 52, Cadishead Rhinos 18, and Division 5 saw Bolton Mets lose at home to Wigan Springview A side by 42 points to 16. Higginshaw defeated Littleborough, and there was no game for Latchford Albion either. Their A side giving the points to New Springs Lions. So looking ahead to the fixtures this coming weekend. And in the Premier Division, we see Folly Lane at home to Ashton Burrs, Heysham Atoms at home to Haydock, Thatto Heath Crusaders A-side at home to Hindley. Division 1 sees the Highpool Tigers at home to Walney Central, Lee Miners Rangers A host Hers Finch, and Pilkington Rex A host Latchford Albion. That'll be a difficult trip to St Helens, I feel, for Latchford Albion, but they have got some class players of the Albion, and I wonder just what the result will be. I'll tell you about it next week. In Division 2, Charlie Panthers are at home to Bury Broncos, Ulverston at home to Oldham St Anne's A-side, Lee East A at home to Leyland Warriors, and Manchester Rangers, they're on the road at Wigan St Jude's A-team. In Division 3, Woolston Rovers A are at home to Chester Gladiators, Crossfields A are also at home to Langworthy Reds, while Wigan Bulldogs travel over to Eccleston Lions, and Rochdale Cobras are away at West Horton Lions. Division 4 again sees a four fixture format, with Wigan Springview at home to Runcorn, Saddleworth Rangers A at home to Orrell St James A, Clotface Miners A-side at home to Cadishead Rhinos, while Culcheth Eagles, they travel over to Blackpool Scorpions. Division 5 sees Littleborough from Rochdale at home to Rylands Sharks, so good luck to the Sharks in that one. Thatto Heath Crusaders B-side are away at Bolton Mets, and Higginshaw at New Spring Lions. So that's your fixtures, that's your rugby league for this week. Best of luck to all the Warrington teams and our Widnes teams as well, and I'll give an update next week of everything that's happened.